So our next presenter is one of my longtime good friends, Ruth Anne Alexander. She is a nationally certified counselor. Her primary focus is to promote healthy mental and emotional well-being by removing blocks to personal growth. In addition to counseling, Ruth Anne teaches personal growth and wellness courses at the local university. She moved to Oregon in 2006 with her husband and her children, where she enjoys horseback riding and other various outdoor activities, and a 10-month-old granddaughter. So I'd like to help me give a warm welcome to my good friend and colleague, Ruth Anne Alexander.
Thank you all for that warm welcome. It's good to be here today. And it's good to be a grandmother. Today I want to talk to you about reprogramming your subconscious. You've heard a lot that's going to tie into this today, and I'm really excited and happy about that. And this is just a different way of looking at it and maybe taking it to another level for you. And so, let's see. When we talk about reprogramming our subconscious, you may be thinking, what is that? Subconscious and unconscious I use kind of interchangeably. So what is happening beneath the subconscious level? What is the driving force behind our behaviors and our thoughts? And I work from a cognitive behavioral therapy base. Basically that means that I believe your thoughts affect your feelings and your feelings affect your thoughts. So a lot of my work revolves around assisting people in identifying those, we call them cognitive thinking distortions or maladaptive thoughts, challenging them and replacing them with more positive reality-based thoughts. What this does is it increases a person's quality of life, their subjective quality of life. They start to feel better. They start to live in conjunction with their dreams, their goals, the life that they really want to lead begins to surface for them. And I want all of you to know, and I'll repeat this at the end of my little spiel, what I want you all to know is that you all have within you the ability to change your thinking, to change your life, and to have the life that you want to lead. Occasionally I'll get people that say, yeah, you don't know me, I have 60, 70 years of thinking this way. But I mean to tell you that you all have within you what it takes to change your thinking and change your life. We just need to learn to tap into it. So I want to talk a little bit about subconscious thoughts. They are a result of our experience. We talked about genetic expression earlier, and a lot of that goes into the nature-nurture, how you were raised, what experiences you had, how those differed from your siblings, your friends, and your colleagues define how we think about things. They sort of lead us to think about things differently. So when does it get in the way for you all? And I'll just leave this for you to think about. When our subconscious thinking gets in the way for many people is when they have these goals that they want to reach. But for some reason, there are roadblocks in the way or speed bumps. There's something preventing them from reaching those goals. And the fact that they're subconscious or unconscious makes it very difficult to identify those and remove those roadblocks so that we can successfully reach those goals. I want to talk a little bit about automatic thoughts, and this was covered a little bit before, so I'll be brief. Basically, the point I want to make is that our brain is this awesome, powerful supercomputer that when we rehearse certain patterns and habits over time, it creates a shortcut for us. Sometimes this gets in the way. I like to use the example of food. Emotional eating is a big one for a lot of people. So this might get in the way if we've practiced this way of self-coping or soothing ourselves with food. One example would be if I'm stressed at the end of a long day and I'm going through my cupboards looking for potato chips because subconsciously my being is driving me toward self-soothing with food. And I don't know about any of you, but I recognized several years ago that it's not just a negative thing where I'm feeling stressed or feeling down that I would reach for those foods. It was also a celebratory event for me growing up. So I noticed, and my husband can vouch for this, I noticed that when something went well, if I had a promotion or I did well in one of my classes, if I felt really good about something, I would come home and I would say, let's go to dinner. Let's go out and celebrate. How many of you have ever told yourselves, I've earned this piece of cake? Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I refer to these sometimes as ruts. I also call them grooves because I feel like that puts a more positive spin on it. But these shortcuts the mind creates is like a really well-worn path that we know so well, we don't have to think about it. Many of you, if you've been driving for any number of years, do this, right? We call it unconscious competence. You know how to drive. You don't have to think about every time you pull up to a stop sign, okay, I need to take my foot off the gas. I need to put my foot on the brake. Now I need to look both ways. Oh, did I give a signal? We don't have to think all of that through because it's a shortcut. It's an automatic thought. The brain is, however, so this goes back to being told that, I'm 60 or 70 years old. I've practiced this for all of these years, or 80 or 90. The brain is very plastic, or you've probably heard the term neuroplasticity. What that means for all of us is that we can learn to restructure those shortcuts. We can create new grooves or new shortcuts and overcome the obstacles that are in our way of reaching the life that we want to lead. Mindfulness is a really good way to practice this in the beginning, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Basically, mindfulness means paying attention on purpose in the present moment and then suspending judgment. So we're not going to judge our thoughts or judge what we're thinking or feeling. We're just going to notice it. What I'm asking you to do is to increase your wise mind. So the diagram up here has two circles. The left side is the reasonable or the logical mind, and the right-hand side is the emotional mind. Well, the logical mind is responsible for planning and decision-making, and it's usually based on the fact, just the fact. The emotional mind, on the other hand, our feelings are controlling our thoughts and our behaviors. And do you think that could get a person in trouble sometimes? Yes, okay, very much so. So the wise mind, we're wanting to expand that portion in the middle that takes into account the fact as well as the thoughts and the feelings. And it's a balance of those two halves. It's recognizing and respecting our feelings. Now, let me shift a little bit. I want to talk to you about how to create change. We have all of those things in mind, the neuroplasticity and the grooves, creating the shortcuts. So when we want to begin creating change, whether it's to get healthy or to lose weight, to live until you're 200 years old, whatever that is, the first thing we can do is begin to increase the wise mind. And using mindfulness is a really great way to do that. Just being aware of our thoughts, what's happening with us. Our thoughts and our feelings don't have to drive our behavior. We can think about, I feel like celebrating by taking my family out to dinner and having a big slice of cake. But what is that really going to do for me in the long run? Identifying your goals. A lot of times people will tell me, well, my goal is to lose weight. I want to lose 5 pounds. Okay, great. But after that 5 pounds, what often happens? Many of you have probably tried a weight loss diet or regimen of some sort. You gain it back at some point, right? Because once you reach that goal, it's done, it's finished, and it's out of our mind. When you begin to think about your goals, if you were to say, I want to lose weight, think about when you've reached that goal, what will you have? Many people will tell me, I will have more energy. I will be able to play with my grandchildren. I will live longer. I'll be healthier. I'll be able to travel and do all of the things that I wanted to do in retirement that I wanted to do. Those are your goals. So think about those, and then we can put into place the objectives that you're going to use to reach those goals. Maybe part of that is losing weight. Maybe part of that is getting healthy. And then if you also think of it as a journey rather than a destination point, you'll probably find that to be much more successful. Okay, so I talked about mindfulness. This is a little bit different in my opinion. And what I often tell my clients is if you could imagine stepping back from yourself and just noticing, using mindfulness, just noticing what is happening in my system right now. What is going on? This will help us start to identify those unconscious thoughts. And we can begin to notice, oh, I feel like having this piece of cake because I had a really bad day at work. Or I feel like giving up on my weight loss goals because I haven't seen the number on the scale shift. By beginning to recognize those without the judgment piece, we can really begin to take power and control over them and become much more empowered in the process. One thing I want to point out here is have some self-compassion. If you think about, what would self-compassion look like, I just tell people, what would you tell your best friend? What would you tell your sibling or your mom or your dad if they were in your shoes and they were beating themselves up mentally for something that they have done? So have self-compassion when you're moving along this journey. I'm going to really briefly talk about an ABC worksheet. It's what I use oftentimes in my practice with people looking at automatic thoughts. I'm not going to go over these examples, but the first one is the action. So what happened? The beliefs, what do I tell myself? And this is where the gold is. in that second column, the beliefs column. That's where these unconscious or subconscious thoughts are that are driving our behavior. And as you're noticing these, as you're noticing what are the beliefs that are running sort of in the background, the automatic pilot that's going on, you can notice that mindfully. You can step back from yourself and just realize, what is that? What is pushing me to want to reward myself after a heavy workout with a bowl of ice? I hear some laughter. So I'm not the only one. Recognize that it's okay to feel emotions. It's okay to feel pain. Life is full of pain. And instead of resisting those emotions, embrace them, notice them, let it bubble up, and then let it go. We don't have to hold on to them or get caught up in them. And then really quickly, I want to tell you also, change out the word not with the word refuse. So our mind does not have an image for the word not, but it can see ourselves refusing that plate of cookies or refusing the cake or the ice. Okay? Thank you all for your attention. That's all for me today. Thank you.